What's up, horror fans, Fear Street fans? Anchorpete here, and I am with my good friend, Dr. Zayas, God, Danny Torkel. How you doing, Danny?
What's up, man? Can't believe that we missed out on meeting each other in person, but we're back in our, I guess, isolation stations now.
Yes, pretty much. But you know what, man? It is good to see you virtually, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
I've kind of taken the reins and reviewed the first two Fear Streets when they came out, and then I was just in New York near Danny recently, but things didn't work out where we couldn't meet up in person. And so, because I was in New York, I couldn't review part 3, 1666. That's what I'm here to do today, and I brought Danny. So, we're going to talk about Fear Street part 3, 1666, and then we're going to rank each of the 3 Fear Street movies. So, Danny, in general, how do you feel about this franchise?
I love it. I think that's the simplest way. It grew on me. Each film grew on me a little bit more, and by the time part 3 ended, I was so into this trilogy, and I want more like it. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I need necessarily a continuation of this story, but I would love more, Fear Street style horror, especially from Netflix, because Netflix, they love pumping out content, but a big complaint about Netflix usually is that they're a little lax on the horror.
Yeah.
So, if they could pump out stuff like this, every summer or every season, who knows? It would be great because yeah, I loved it by the end. I thought it was an excellent trilogy.
Yeah. It was great. It was kind of cool that they filmed it almost like Lord of the Rings, where it's just like back to back, and they just popped them out all 3 weeks in a row. I don't think they've ever done that before, and I think it really worked in terms of like just keeping the buzz about this going. Like one of the things with Netflix in general, right, is that they promote something, then they release everything in one dump, and then that's it, and no one talks about it like 2 weeks later, right?
That's yeah. It's funny. I think Disney Plus has really brought back the idea of like water cooler television, especially with these MCU shows and The Mandalorian, where they release them once a week, and it's like people like my son waits.
Uh-oh. Danny's cable company strikes again. They called. Oh, now he's upside down. All right, you're
Uh,
back, man.
you hear me?
I hear you.
All right, forget Optimum. I'll call them later.
Yeah,
Uh,
screw those guys.
yeah, like the Disney Plus has got people staying up till like 3 in the morning on the East Coast waiting for the new episode of an MCU show or a Star Wars show to come out. Um, and whereas, like you said, Netflix, I've loved a lot of Netflix shows, but it's usually like binge them, 3, 4 episodes at a time. They come out on a Tuesday, you're done by Thursday morning, and then you talk about them for a day, and then they're kind of done, and you're just like, oh, I wonder when the next season of Glow or Santa Clarita Diet's coming out, and then they end up canceling the shows you like. So
Yeah. As you guys will know, just if you ever check out my channel, Comic Books Transformed, with Brian, we talk about Netflix shows and we talk about Disney Plus shows, and we're big fans of the Disney model, which is like in installments every week. And that's why I really liked this. By the time this third installment was on, it was like, Back to the Future Part 3. They already had that cliffhanger ending from the last one. My friend Mike Bongiorno, he was saying that, they kind of quantum leaped Sarah Fear in that last one, right? Or Dina into Sarah Fear.
yeah.
So we should talk about 1666 and talk about what we liked and what we did not like about it. First off, did you like the fact that the people that were cast in the previous installments were other characters in this one?
Yes, I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of bring it full circle. I did like that aspect to it. I think that like as well as like they're playing characters, like you're spending a lot of time with those actors, and so it was nice to see. Like the friends from 1994 are still there, in 1666. That part I did like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if they hadn't connected it thematically like the way that they did, I think I would have been like, well, what was the point of that? But the fact that the story in 1994 connects so directly to the story in 1666, I really enjoyed that. A guy, Jeremy Espinoza, I don't know if you know him or not, but he said R.I.P. So maybe R.I.P. Sarah Fear. Okay. Anyway, the idea that you had these two female characters that are lovers, and even like I said in my first review, like in 1994, that was still pretty taboo to have like a lesbian relationship, to have an open lesbian relationship. But in 1666, Jesus, that was like, blasphemy, right? And
Yeah,
so,
we
right.
we've talked about with a lot of the movies that we've covered. One of the things that is continually very scary for me, one of like my favorite subgenres in horror, is anything that has to do with cults.
Yes.
I think cults are just naturally scary, and to me, and this might be a little off color saying it, but to me, the largest cult in the world is religion, and and so there was a lot of cult, like the devout fundamentalist religion. Really kind of comes off as a cult in this movie. It reminded me of Robert Eggers' The Witch. Of course, it did.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of my favorite modern horror films. So yeah, I liked the whole setting. I liked the aspect of how the lesbian romance is generational, going back all the way to 1666 and their ancestors. I thought that was clever that they continued that, and it comes full circle.
Yeah. And we probably should have said this already too, that this is spoilers for all three installments, but specifically 1666. You're 100% on the money with the witch comparison. I mean, that's what I thought about immediately. You're a history teacher, right? This show is what? Where is it set? In Ohio?
It's set in Ohio, so Ohio doesn't become a state until I think the end of the 1700s. Like, it's not one of the original 13 colonies. So,
Right.
but I'm not going to get bogged down. Like, I don't want to be one of those people who's like, I didn't like the Fear Street movies because this song came out in 1995 instead of 94.
Right.
So, and I've seen a lot of people with those types of criticisms about this series, and
Yeah.
it didn't bother me. I enjoyed the music throughout, even in 1666. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I was kind of wondering was, like, why did they choose to have it in Ohio if in the third installment they were going to have this sort of colonial vibe to it? And I'm only assuming that, like, the Fear Street books of which they're inspired by, maybe they take place in Ohio.
that could be it. That could be it. I never read the Fear Street books growing up. I was a Goosebumps R.L. Stein kid. I think I read all of Volume 1. I think when I graduated elementary school, remember like the albums that you got where it was like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? Well, my favorite book in 5th grade was Say Cheese and Die, which was one of the Goosebumps books. But I never read the Fear Street book, so I don't know. It would have probably made more sense if this was set in like Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But again, like that didn't necessarily bother me. I mean, I'm sure there were colonists in Ohio, English colonists there.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, just like you, that didn't bother me too. It's like, who cares? Whatever. Just give us that setting. I was a little turned off by their accents because I'm like, I love all the actors in these movies. I think they did a great job no matter what time period they were in. But that sort of that colonial, weird, almost like Irish accent, that was kind of turning me off. What I was going to say was that for me, for the first two installments, and I said this in my reviews too, that like I like them a lot better by the middle on, right? And the midpoint for me in this movie is like when Sarah Fear finds out what's truly going on in the town. I feel like that's sort of like midway in the film, and then it shifts. And of course, it shifts because it goes into 1994.
Yeah.
But for me, all three of these movies, the first act and a little bit of the second act, I didn't like. Oh, there's the cable company. Hopefully he's still there. I'm gonna still say my shit though. Who cares? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah, man, we got to be careful with these live shows because we always have technical difficulties.
I know.
What I was gonna say was that in all three installments, I always liked the second half of the movie way better than the first half. And in this one too, one of the good things about this one is that there wasn't like, oh, it's from this time period, so let's just shove all these songs right in your face. Because I noticed that by the third installment, I was like, oh yeah, they pretty much stop hitting you with the songs from the period by about the midway point. So did you feel that way? Like, did you like these movies all the way through, or did you kind of feel like me where it's like by the second half it gets better?
So this is going to be a little hint to my ranking. I didn't love 1994 at the beginning. I got into it more towards the end of 1994. I thought 78 was pretty good from beginning to end.
Okay.
And I kind of felt that way about this. I was having this conversation with my sister where I think I liked 78 because it has there's always something with when you have a trilogy, part 2 gets to benefit from not having to spend 30 to 40 minutes introducing you to everything. You kind of just get to pick up where part 1 left off and go straight into the story.
Yeah.
Whereas part 1, obviously, it's like Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars. Star Wars is great, but the first 30 to 40 minutes is all setting you up for, Luke and Han and everybody getting together.
Right.
So that's what I liked about 1978. I really liked from beginning to end. And then this one I really liked from beginning to end. It was only 1994 that took a little time for me to get into it. But I definitely see what you mean with the it takes time, because part 1 did that for me. I didn't get into part 1 right away.
I think, like, for me, my problems with the first half of this chapter is it was kind of off-putting with their accents, and I feel like there was that historical accuracy, but it's just kind of set in this time period where it feels real loose with how they're handling things, and that's fine. It's just like it's kind of off-putting. Like you mentioned The Witch before, and that really feels like you're in this time. Whereas this kind of feels like, okay, it's like the same kind of story. We're just throwing in these old trappings from the 1600s. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just lessens my enjoyment of it. And like when they were going around and doing the drugs and stuff, and it had all these other characters. Well, they weren't doing drugs; they were eating berries, right? I like that sequence, but I was just kind of like, okay, come on, let's get with the kill. Let's move on. Once they got to that scene where the pastor or the deacon or whatever was in the church with all the kids, that's when it was like, okay, we're on. It's time to go. And that was maybe one of the most disturbing scenes in the whole trilogy.
Yeah, that was great. I really. That's another thing. Like anything with eyeballs is, you're getting into like really gory early 80s Italian horror territory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I thought that part, and then I just like that they spent 2 movies, it's all the witch, it's the witch, it's the witch. And then they're kind of laying it on really thick to the point where, I don't know about you, but I always kind of felt that there was something going on, and so I like that they eventually went to introduce us to Sarah Fear and then give us the story almost from her perspective. And I thought that it ended up being a really cool, if not I don't want to say it was obvious, but I thought it was a pretty decent twist. Yeah.
Well, I think that what they do a really great job with this is because it's that parallel to the 1994 story, you really empathize with her, with Sarah Fear. That really works to empathize with her. But then besides that, they make the villain, who it's like, oh, this is the villain all along. they really set that up very well in this, because when you look at Sheriff Good in the first installment, you know, you're not really sure if he's bad or what's up with him. You just know that there's something more to him, right? He leaves a little note. I think he leaves it for C. Berman in the first one, where it's like, it's happening again. And so I kind of always took it like he was aware of like supernatural stuff going on, but he wasn't evil. Then when you watch the second installment, you see that he has this bond with Ziggy, right? And you think, okay, well, he's just sort of an outcast, or he has this family legacy. Then you see that he kind of betrays her at the very end because he doesn't corroborate with her story. But then in this, you see that his whole family is evil, right?
I feel like that is going to help with the rewatch value of this series. Where now that you've seen episodes 1, 2, movies parts 1, 2, and 3, and you know the secret, that like when you go back and watch parts 1 and 2 again, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, that all right, and it's gonna like, and I think that's another reason why I love the trilogy so much, is that each installment made me like the last one a little bit more.
Yes.
Like I didn't love 1994 until the end of this movie. I really liked 1978, but then I liked 1978 even more after I watched part 3.
Right.
And so that's, you know, I think that says a lot. And I think that goes to Lee Janiak, the director. And again, I'm going to make a Star Wars comparison again.
Do it.
This is a better trilogy than the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Uh-oh.
It is. Because it's one person, it's one vision.
Right.
And you can tell from Fear Street 1994 to 78 to 1666 that one person knows exactly where this story is going. And yes, she had co-writers. Phil Graziade, I think is how you say his name. He was like it's by a story from him, and he co-wrote the screenplay with her on I think all 3 of these. Plus, she had other writers help her, but she is the visionary of this series. And you can tell that everything that happens, especially the way that this movie comes full circle, that she had a plan all along. Whereas, you know, again, I'm not going to make this a Star Wars thing, but like The Last Jedi has no idea what Force Awakens is doing. The Rise of Skywalker has no clue what Last Jedi's doing, and then you're just kind of left with what?
Yeah.
This was a straight line that covered 300 years of history, and I thought that, you know, she deserves a lot of credit for that. And if they're going to do, Netflix is going to do more things like this, they should hire one director or one writing team to do it, because that's the key. And like we've seen this before in some of the stuff that we've covered with like Haunting of Hill House or Bly Manor, where it's Flanagan's stuff and it's just his vision throughout.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Dude, Netflix would be so stupid if they didn't hire her again to do any kind of follow-up to this. Like, they would be so dumb, you know? So, yeah, I just appreciated the cohesiveness of it all, just like you. And really, that Salman character in this installment, he's the one that all brings it home, right? Because Sheriff Good, you know, we see him, we don't really know where he stands, and then you see that he's this bad guy at the very end. But Salman, they do this great job with him where he seems like he's kind of like an ally to all the outsiders in the town. And you think, oh, I trust this guy. And he's kind of the sheriff in the other one, right? So you feel connected to him, but then it goes, whoop, does this nice 180. And he's just this friggin' devil-worshipping bastard who's very worthy. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Like, so he essentially all he had to do was like read out of this book, and it like shapes the stone, and he created that whole underground cave. And you were talking about cohesiveness. I love how like the underground cave is below the campground. There's that specific tree that's in all 3 of them. It's in the mall, right? Like, I love how the geography is consistent through all 3 of these, right? And it's all connected to this underground lair that he created.
Yeah, and that, like, you got, especially, for our generation, I got a lot of nostalgia vibes to the Goonies, of course, with them finding the path to One-Eyed Willie under the restaurant, and there's even the scene where they're in 1978 where they're trying to get out through the bathroom, which is very similar to the wishing well scene in the Goonies.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just gonna say I thought it was so funny, and I said this to myself while I was watching it, and I was like, that's kind of ridiculous. And then I saw a huge Twitter thread about it,
Okay.
where this Solomon Good, the villain from 1666, who's basically the overarching villain of the whole his family.
Yeah.
They basically make a pact with the devil to gain control over small town Ohio.
That's right.
It's like I'm going to make a pact with Satan so that I can be the sheriff of a small town. Like, that's it? That's
Dude,
your ambition?
Reach for the stars, man. Small town Ohio.
And we're gonna have the good side of the town in we're gonna the Sunnyvale, right?
Dude, this is how kind of lame that is, actually, because I was thinking, okay, think of something in Ohio to make a joke about. Something in Ohio to make. I can't even think of anything in Ohio.
Well, I mean, like Cleveland. I don't know.
Oh, wait. My wife said the Cincinnati Reds. Well, they're not in there. Probably the people from the Sunnyvale might play for the Reds. Yes.
And I mean, I saw this Twitter thread where it was like, it says a lot about, masculinity, that you have all the power of Satan and you use it to just get slightly better than everybody else in a small town. And I was like, maybe that was, you have a female director, you have all these lead characters are pretty much women. Maybe that's part of the joke about the villains in this series is that they have the power of the devil on their side and they don't use it for anything more than small town glory.
Well, I mean, there definitely is a commentary going on, right?
Oh yeah.
Because you got the one side of the town is just completely shit on. And that kind of leads me to a little complaint I have about this series, right? And you kind of mentioned this in one of our Twitter discussions too, is it's pretty much once per generation there's one of these killers, right? Or maybe even more.
Yeah.
So shouldn't there be if there's 300, right? Shouldn't there be at least 20 of them or not more killers?
Yeah, I think they did somewhat of a decent job in the second half of 1666. That mall sequence where they have all the killers kind of converge. It's funny. I wrote down for the second time in a conversation with you, bringing up Chris's Night at the Museum reference, because that's kind of what this felt like an Annabelle Comes Home situation where it's all the villains together at the same time are converging.
Yeah.
I really like that final sequence where they lure the sheriff in and they have all of the villains go after it. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a great way to tie in that mall and then have them all behind those gates, and that really just kind of makes it full circle, right? Because it ties in with the very first scene in the whole series.
Yeah.
So before we jump into our ranking, then, out of those killers, which killer do you like the best, aesthetically and what they do? Which killer do you like the best?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think the creepiest one is probably the little kid with the bat.
Yeah.
Because you have the skull face is just it's a different version of Scream. The axe killer from part 2 is
Jason.
Baggy face Jason with an axe instead of a machete.
Right.
So you've seen a lot of versions of each of these killers before, but a little kid with a bat and a creepy mask who murders his mother while she's sleeping, that's pretty creepy. I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
I would say that for me, my favorite would be Ruby Lane. And I just kind of feel it's just that they built up so much around her, her mom's in 1978. she's the only one that talks out of all of them, right? Or sings. And I just liked her aesthetic that, when she first shows up in 1994, they think that she's sort of this weird kind of hot girl, but it turns out she's this killer with the switchblade. So, I think that Ruby Lane's probably my favorite. I really love that picture of like all of them together, just like sitting on the set.
Yeah, no, I saw that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I just like the heart beating in the cave. And that, like, they kind of like are born out of it, right? They kind of like come out of it. I like that too.
That's another thing. I can't even think of a movie or a series that's blended like supernatural and slasher this well. Like, I'm sure I'm missing some very obvious ones. Like, somebody will probably tell me, and like, yeah, Jason's been like brought back to life 52 times. Michael Myers, like, Halloween, there's like cult aspects to Halloween. And is he the boogeyman? Is he supernatural? But like, this is like summoning the devil. And like you said, there's this pulsing heart where like villains are coming out of, but then they're tangible villains who are chopping and stabbing people. So you really get this, like, it's a slasher movie, and then it's like a supernatural cult movie, and this it blends it together really well. Each part of the Fear Street movies.
Yeah, I agree. I think if anything, I could compare it to. It kind of reminds me of 13 Ghosts a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Because there's all these different characters, and then they all have like backstories of how they were killers when they were alive, and now they're back as like spirits, tangible spirits that could mess you up. I don't know. That's the closest thing I could think of. But yeah, that whole cult aspect. Yeah, I know there's a little bit of a cult aspect in Halloween 5, right?
5 and 6, yeah.
5 and 6, yeah. Right. But yeah, I would rather watch any one of these than watch those two Halloween movies, right?
Halloween 5, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a bizarre soft spot for Halloween 6, but yeah.
Cool, man. Well, so do you think we should get down to our ranking?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. You want to go first, or you want me to?
So, I very simply, there's only 3 movies. I think 1666 is my favorite, because of what I said earlier about how it's a sequel that makes each of the films before it better for me. Yeah. And if a sequel can do that, then aside from the fact that it's just good, no pun intended with Solomon good, or Sheriff good, but right. It's a good movie. It creeped me out. The fundamentalism scares me to begin with on a just a regular human level, and then there's the Satan aspect to it. I love how it came full circle. So 1666, I think, was my favorite by just a smidge over 1978, because I'm a simple man and I love a good camp slasher movie. Right. And 1994 was my least favorite. It took me the longest of the 3 movies to get into it, and I really only loved 1994 once 1666 got back to it with in the second half of that movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to cause a little controversy, because I think that my ranking is actually the complete inverse of that. I have 1994 as my favorite, mainly because of things I didn't like about the other 2 installments. But it really all comes down to Katie and her death in 1994 and going into the bread slicer, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've watched this whole trilogy. That's the scene that affected me the most, where I was like, oh, that bothered me the way that she died. I was kind of impressed that they decided to take out like a likable character like that. Like, that had the biggest impact out of all 3 movies. And so I like all the characters in all of the movies, but I would have to say that for the 1666 aspect of the 3rd movie, I didn't really like the characters as much. I didn't like Sarah Fear as much. It just kind of felt like, oh, this is Dina from the first movie just doing an accent, you know? And
Yeah,
so,
no,
what's that?
no, that makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. I really like the 1978 part. I like the ending of the 1978 part is great when all the killers converge on them and kill them, and then you see that both sisters get stabbed, and you think that the one sister's the one that's supposed to die, but it's the other one. I like that twist. But yeah, I would say that it's 1994 for me, then 78, and then 1666. And just yeah, I don't know. I'm a fan of the series. I want more.
I know. I get like I was telling you, like all I see on Twitter are people's rankings, and so I was like, this show, I keep calling it a show. This series of movies, I think Netflix, like you said, I think they did a brilliant job marketing these, having them come out because not only did you have people like us who watch them every Friday and then tried to talk about them here on YouTube. But you also, I saw people who are like, I'm gonna wait, and I'm gonna, like I'm not gonna watch 1994 right away, and then they would watch 1994 and 1978 together, or I know people who've actually like they rewatch the one before when the next one comes out.
Right,
And
right.
and I think that these movies are going to have a lot of rewatchability
Hell yeah.
because of how the twists all come together in 1666. And also, a guy I know, a filmmaker who I've met before, he had a good comment on Twitter where he said, these movies walk the line between gateway horror and adult horror. This is like the last step on the gateway horror. We were just at the airport. What's it called?
The tram or whatever.
Yeah. On like the conveyor of gateway horror, and then like before you can just start watching like adult horror movies.
Yeah.
Because there's a few moments of sexuality, but there's nothing graphic. There's nothing 80s style like nudity.
No.
Yes, there are some graphic kills. So you get the blood, you get like more adult themes. Like you said, there are some agendas here, but they're not very overt. And I would love if Charlotte wanted to watch these. I'd be glad to watch them again. I already told her, I was like, you'll love them, and you'll want to watch them like as soon as 1984 ends. You're gonna want to watch part 2, and then you're gonna want to watch. And Charlotte just finished Stranger Things, and there's a lot of parallels. Lee Janiak is married to Ross Duffer.
Okay, one of Duffer's. Yeah.
And there's actors who cross over. Maya Hawke is the first victim here. Sadie Sink, of course.
Sadie Sink. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of crossover. So like, does Pepper watch Stranger Things yet?
No, but you know what, man? I think it's time.
Well, because Charlotte just finished it and she loved it, and she's like dying. She wants to dress up now as 11 for. And I already told her, I was like, well, Mad Max is in Fear Street, and the girl from Scoops.
There you go. She's all ready to watch it.
Yeah, so I'll probably end up rewatching these very soon.
Awesome, man. Yeah. It just was like a fun time. It was just a fun time to sit down. Yeah. We always watch the. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm overrating these and calling these like generational horror films. They're not, but they're just fun. Like you said, if I had one criticism specifically, it would be like, you could probably find a way to shave 10 minutes off of each movie. These could have been 90 minutes each, an hour and 35 minutes each. They didn't have to be an hour and 50 minutes each. I felt like that might have been going a little too, but still, like, just a fun trilogy with great continuity, good kills. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. as part of the horror fan base or community or whatever, like the last drive-in kind of brings everybody together, right? Like we talk about Twitter like all the fucking time on this show. That's okay. It's a big thing for us. Like on Twitter when it's Friday night and the last drive-in is on, boom, boom. That's what everyone's talking about, right? Everyone's tweeting about the last drive-in. Then with this, like, so this is the next big horror thing where like everyone is talking about this on, in horror. So it was an event, and I don't know what's coming up next, but I hope that it's as exciting as this was.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I think probably the next big horror event will be, in terms of like a movie or a series,
Yeah.
will be Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling like, yeah, obviously it's the middle of July now, so every week, every day we get a little closer to October. Halloween Kills coming out. I mean, that trailer looked brutal. So I think that's probably going to be the next like landmine event, landmark event of the year. But who knows? Like, there's plenty of great horror coming out. I have a ton of stuff saved up on Vudu that I've been like, there's a bunch of new independent horror films. Shudder has a bunch of new stuff. I fell far behind. Candlebox over here.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, put that in Fear Street 94. Let's go.
Right, exactly. That's perfect. So, anyway, me and Danny, we are the two horror dads. He's been keeping it up with his daughter Charlotte on here, reviewing stuff with her. I'm going to get my daughter Pepper in here, maybe with some of that gateway horror stuff Danny was talking about. But, it's still just the middle of the summer for us, and we got a lot more stuff coming. So let us know, how would you rank these three movies? And if there was going to be a Fear Street new series, what would you like to see explored in that? All right. So, Danny, we're good, man. I will see you, and I'll see everybody else next time. Thanks.